What type of a beast did you awaken? Is that a tick? The grandmaster asked, and everyone burst into laughter. Many awakened powerful beasts with great capabilities, but all he awakened was a tick. Little did they know that he had awakened the lost dragon god. Chapter name. Weak beast. The sun was hung in the air, and its golden rays of light penetrated the ozone layer of Zerblus, shining down upon its residents. Many were busy with work, others with their daily activities, and some were in school trying to learn, while some were always out for mischief. A green beam of energy was shot out of the hands of a green-haired boy and flew straight into the stomach of a dark-haired boy, causing him to fly straight into a nearby cart. Trash as always. Mark, the green-haired boy said, and everyone burst into laughter. This had become a normal thing for Nate, ever since he stood up to Mark all those years ago. Mark, the son of the Lord of Zerblus, had been shocked to discover a commoner standing up to him and continuing to bully him ever since that day to show him who was boss. This had become a normal thing for him. Mark's bullying was always the worst part of his life, and he had never stopped hating him. "Why are you doing this to me, Mark?" Nate growled as he stood up, his red hair all dusty and dirty, his school uniform torn, and his black eyes held a look of pain in them. "To show you your place, you fool," Mark screamed at Nate before firing another beam at him. Nate flew away and into the school building behind him. "Ah, fuck this world," Xander said angrily. The current world was one that only cared about strength and power. Ever since the dark beasts had broken into their realm and began attacking the human race like the ungodly creatures they were, the world was instantly plunged into a state of chaos. There was nothing the humans knew that could fight them. Their swords and shields were like paper to the beasts. The beasts quickly plunged the world into chaos, humans were lost and distraught, and their population was quickly plummeting, and there was nothing they could do. Until a wise priest came up with a brilliant idea. With his wisdom and magic, he built a ritual to pair humans and beasts, giving humans beast-like abilities. The tables quickly turned, and humans with their wisdom and newfound power quickly pushed back the beasts. Humans were able to summon balls of fire, run as fast as the wind, and soar through the skies after being fused with beasts. The beasts and humans ended up signing a treaty of peace, a treaty that stated no beast or human would attack each other unless they stepped into their territory for 50 full years. The treaty was signed 45 years ago, and now the tensions between beasts and humans were growing higher than ever. Beasts had already begun killing humans, and the next great war was 5 years from now. Nate was a young 17-year-old boy who had lost his parents due to the war. He was a poor orphan with nothing to his name and no one to call friends. Upon reaching 17, every citizen of the land of Zerblus was required to perform the ritual that bound them to their beasts, and today just so happened to be Nate's turn. "All this would end today. I shall awaken a powerful beast," Nate said, and one could see the hope written all over his black eyes. Nate forcefully got up from the ground and dusted himself off. The students all around him just ignored him and continued with their daily duties. Everyone knew Nate, the popular and powerless orphan, or Mark's toy. Mark was an older student who loved bullying Nate due to his powerlessness and social status. Nate had no power to fight back when Mark bullied him, and he had no parents to report to. The teachers cared about nothing but status and money, so they always ignored Nate whenever he came crying for help. Nate made his way out of school. What was the point anyway? He was not exactly bright and just wanted to unlock a powerful beast and change his faith. If possible, he could become a knight. Nate picked up his weak body and grudgingly dragged his weak body out of Zerblus. High students could clearly see him but pretended like no one existed, who wanted to face the wrath of Mark Greenlash. The land of Zerblus was a medieval one. Coins were the medium of exchange. Books were the main source of entertainment. Knights were highly respected. Nobles, kings, all that existed in the land of Zerblus, and even magic. Nate was on his way to the priest's temple. It was where most of his peers were currently headed. The priest's temple was where the ritual to unlock one's beast would be performed. Nate reached the huge and wide temple. It looked like an ancient Buddhist temple, but with statues of knights and old priests as designs. Nate quickly walked into the large temple where most of his peers from all around Zerblus were gathered and all waiting for their turns to perform their rituals. Nate quickly blended into the crowd, who were all gazing up at the high priest who was peacefully floating above them all. "Good afternoon, young students. Today your fates shall be determined. Many dual become warriors. Many shall become mages, some both. As you all know, the human race is at war with the ungodly beasts that invade our realm. Today you shall be granted the power and the opportunity to fight for your realm. Today you shall make a deal with a devil to defeat the devil. Today you shall become champions. The rich might become poor where the poor might become rich. Now stand in a straight line, let us begin. The priest said, finishing his abnormally long speech. The children immediately followed the orders of the priest and began arranging themselves in a straight line. The test had begun. Each student would place their hands on a circular platform and a drop of blood. Seconds later a beast would detect it and pair with them. This was how the ritual worked, and soon it had started, with many gaining miraculous powers, and soon it was Nate's turn. Nate took the blade from the table and made a cut on his palm. He placed his hands on the platform with his eyes closed. He could feel his blood being drawn out of him and a marking being made on his hands, a sign that he had unlocked his beast. What is this, boy? Did you unlock a tick as a beast? An old priest said. He was donned in a long white flowing robe which reached the floor and perfectly complemented his long white hair. His eyes held a look of wisdom, but his face was one of pure anger. Nate looked at his right arm, and truly, there he could see it, the marking of his beast. It was nothing but a tick. No, sir. I am sure there must be an error somewhere. Can I retake the test? Nate said with hope, sadness, desperation, and faith in his black eyes. Are you mad, boy? First you awaken a tick as a beast, then you insult my magic by saying I made an error, and you give me orders. The priest shouted in anger, his eyes glowing pure white. Begone, you failure, and take that weak thing you call a beast with you. The priest screamed, and with a mere wave of his hands, Nate flew right through the temple walls and right into the trash bin. Loud laughs could be heard. Everyone burst into laughter on witnessing Nate being discarded like the trash he was. Why me? Nate said angrily. Ever since his parents had died, everyone began avoiding him like the plague. He hoped that when he got his beast he would change his life, but instead he had awakened a mere tick as a beast. What stupid powers can a mere tick give me? Nate screamed angrily. The marking on his left wrist was that of a mere tick, while his peers got griffins, lycans, and elves. He got nothing but a mere tick. Nate knew that there was no point in screaming and managed to pick his body out of the trash bin. Several of his bones were broken. The priest had really flung him away with anger. Chapter name: Brutalized. Warning. This chapter would contain a lot of extreme violence. Nate was slowly dragging his weak body to the rub-down house his parents had left him. I am weak. I am useless. What powers is a tick supposed to grant me? Nate thought with tears streaming down his eyes. His hope had been violently ripped away from him. Nate continued walking, and eventually, he ended up at the entrance of a dark alley. He was using a shortcut route to get to his house. Hey, trash. Nate heard a familiar voice, and before he could look to see its origin, a familiar feeling came upon him. His body was lifted above the ground with unimaginable force and chucked into the wall. Nate groaned as he struggled to stand up. Bruises had accumulated all over his body, and the physical pain he was feeling now was unimaginable. Mark, please. Today is not a good day, Nate said with seriousness in his eyes. He had just been humiliated in front of all his peers by the priest, and now he did not want any more problems. Oh, but it is a very good day. My brother here has awakened a rather interesting beast, and we wish to test it on you, Mark said with a smile on his face. His green eyes held a semblance of near madness. Martin, don't be such an ass. Show our new friend what you can do, Mark said. He placed his hands behind the back of a boy who looked like a younger version of him, pushing him forward and encouraging him to use his powers. Martin obeyed his brother and walked to the side of Nate. He quickly crouched down to look at Nate, who had a look of pain on his face. Nate had never had any problems with Martin. Martin was one of his peers and had never joined his brother in bullying people. He seemed like a genuinely nice guy who was the opposite of his brother. Martin placed his hands on Nate's body. Martin's palms took on a green glow, and soon Nate could feel a strange energy invading his body. He could feel the pleasant and harmonious energy healing up all his wounds and restoring him to normal. Okay, I have tested my powers on him. Can we go now? It is getting late and father will be worried, Martin said in a voice that almost sounded like he was begging his brother to let go of Nate. No, brother. You do not have to worry about father, we have to test the limits, remember, we just need to train. Mark said in a psychotic voice that reflected his smile, which was one of a pure maniac. It was clear he planned to torture Nate that night. Mark fired another energy beam at Nate's legs, breaking them instantly before he could even try to run. He crouched down towards the pained Nate and grabbed onto his finger. Mark twisted his finger with ease, making it pop. Nate screamed loudly, but before his screams could go far, Mark had also cut his tongue but made Martin heal it to the point where the bleeding stopped, but the pain was too much for him to scream. Mark broke every single one of Nate's fingers, dismantling them in the worst way possible, and some he had ripped right off. Heal his fingers fully, Mark said with a sadistic smile on his face. Nate's eyes sparked in hope, and he silently prayed they were done with torturing him, but Mark could not give up. Mark repeated the same process over and over again. Without remorse, Nate had long since stopped screaming and just remained there taking in the pain. Heal his legs. Let him at least be able to walk his sad self home, Mark said after he was done with Nate. Blood spilled everywhere. Martin did as he was told and only healed Nate's legs, leaving his arms still brutally damaged. Mark had ripped out 3 fingers, completely dismantled one, while the rest were twisted in the worst ways imaginable. Nate desperately tried to stand up. He knew he had to get out of there fast or he would suffer death. Who says I am done with you yet? Mark said and blasted another beam of energy straight into Nate's stomach, making him groan in pain. Mark continued by kicking, punching, and blasting Nate until he was satisfied. Let us leave. Do not heal him, Mark said, and he and Martin left Nate to die in that alleyway. Nate looked like a deformed bird, with blood dripping from his body like crazy. He was like a mutilated bird. Several injuries and bruises had appeared all over his body, and he looked like he would die at any moment. Nate forcefully dragged himself back to his house. It was a run-down piece of trash, made of wood and some stone pieces. It was a single room that only allowed Nate to fit in. Nate managed to enter his house with blood dripping all around. If he was to die, he preferred to die in the last piece of property he had. Nate lay on the bed, looking straight at the ceiling. He knew he was going to die and there was nothing that could be done about it. Curse you, Mark Green Whip, if I ever survive this encounter, I would personally rip out your spine, no matter if I have to make a deal with the devil, Nate said angrily. Determination and resolve were written all over his eyes and in his words. And you, Martin Green Whip, I would make sure you go through the same torment I did at the hands of your brother. This I promise you both. Nate swore. He wanted his last words to be something proud and courageous, not the words of a coward. Nate could slowly feel himself dying, but that wasn't the only thing going on. The tick on Nate's arm was slowly getting bigger, and the mark was beginning to shift. It began to twist and turn until it became clear, the marking of the great red dragon beast. Host acquired. You have awakened the dragon beast system. These were the last words Nate saw before he passed out. Chapter name: Dragon God? The golden rays of sunlight once again descended upon the land of Zerblus. Birds were soaring high in the air, and everyone was beginning their daily activities. The eyes of a young boy in a bloody environment fluttered open. He groaned in tiredness as the sun interrupted his sleep. He could feel the warm rays of the sun on his body, and the disgusting smell of dried blood forced him up. Nate groaned. He could still feel his warm blood on his sheets. How did I survive that encounter? Nate thought, and memories began to flood his mind. Memories of pain and torture. But aside from the pain and torture, there was something else, something he couldn't fathom. He looked at his hands and body, and they were completely healed, even better than before. His previously lean body now had medium-sized muscles. He could see a 4-pack up and could feel changes all around his body. What the fuck is going on? Nate asked himself. He had only heard of reincarnation in some old tales they were taught at the temple, but he had never heard of being reincarnated into the same world and body. No, it was more like he healed and didn't die. Nate felt a sharp pain in his head and a new memory flooded his brain. He remembered something floating before his eyes. As soon as he thought about it, it instantly reappeared in his field of vision. Host acquired. Congratulations, you have successfully acquired the Dragon Beast system. The host can grow stronger by completing certain quests and tasks. killing and absorbing mana and energy from beasts or humans. Quest received. Kill the Green Whip Brothers. Duration: 3 months. Rewards: plus 2 new skills. System level: 1 power level. 1 name: Nate Bliss. Age: 17. Race: Halfling. Class: Draconic being in transition. Beast: Dragon King. Beast. Beast type: Dragon. Beast class: XX plus HP: 100 EP, 50 mana, 10 dragon energy, 50 skills, 2 speed, 10 strength, 7 endurance, 15 EXP, 0 stat points, 0. Nate stared at his system screen with a puzzled expression on his face. He could not seem to understand what most of the words meant and just kept staring at them. I wish I could get an explanation, Nate thought, and once again the system responded to his thoughts, only explaining what confused him. Race: this refers to the current race of the host. A halfling is a human who is transitioning into a dragon. Beast: this refers to what type of beast an individual currently possesses. The host possesses the Dragon King beast. Beast type: this determines whether a beast is a mage-type beast or a battle-type beast. The host possesses a dragon beast, and dragons are capable of magic and battle. Beast class: there are 18 classes of beasts which are from XX to F. Beasts are classified according to their prowess and potential. Dragons are the strongest of them all. Mana: this is the energy needed to cast spells and perform mage attacks. Skills: these are the special attacks you can perform using the system. You currently have 2 skills. Dragon Flash level 1. This skill compresses draconic energy into the legs, giving the user a short burst of speed cost. 10 dragon energy. Cooldown: 3 minutes. Dragon Strike level 1. This skill compresses dragon energy into the fists of the user, giving the user an increase in strength and attack power. Cost: 10 dragon energy. Cooldown: 3 minutes. Strength: this is how strong the system perceives you to be. What is this? I awakened a tick as a beast, and now this system is telling me that it was a beast. Nate said to himself with confusion written all over his face. Nate quickly checked the marking on his wrist and was shocked at what he was seeing. The small black marking of the tick which had previously been inscribed on his arm after the ritual had changed. Whoa! Nate said in surprise. All over his arms and chest the marking of a huge red dragon had been inscribed on it, and he could feel it all around him. Will the user like to go into stealth mode? The system asked the puzzled Nate. He had no idea what the stealth mode was, but he decided it would not hurt to give it a try. Yes, Nate thought. He was a smart boy and had noticed that his thoughts were what controlled the functions of the system. The previously huge marking of a dragon on his body began to shrink into a small black, which resembled a tick on his arm. So that is what stealth mode does. Nate looked at his arms in realization, and soon joy filled his heart. So I awakened the most powerful beast. I cannot wait to show those useless brothers who is their boss. Nate thought with joy written all over his face in a smile. System, how do I get stronger? Nate asked his system, and it replied immediately. Nate was not a fool. He knew he still needed to get stronger to kill the brothers. The system responded. How do I do that? Nate asked the system. He was honestly confused about how some of the things of the system worked, but he was snady and could figure out basic things. Complete quests to gain EXP and stat points. You can also defeat opponents to gain EXP and stat points. The system answered. Good. Nate said to himself. He had already constructed a plan on how to grow stronger. Chapter name. Fight with Gecko. Today was a very special day for the 17-year-olds of Zerbliss. Today was the day they got to pick their career specialization. There were 9 major career paths: mage, knight, battle mage, warden, forgemaster, hand-to-hand combat, keepers of knowledge, alchemy, and the last but most definitely not the least were healers and support. Once an individual had unlocked their beasts, it was crucial that they needed to begin learning what specialization suited their beasts the most to achieve greatness. There were mainly 2 types of beasts, the mage-type beasts and the battle-type beasts. Mage-type beasts could use magical attacks to attack, while battle-type beasts could only use physical attacks and boost the physical capabilities of the user. Some rare beasts could do both. A dragon was one of them. A beast that had disastrous physical abilities and unmatchable magical power. Nate's previous school uniform had been ripped apart after being hopelessly bullied yesterday, but it did not matter and the school never really cared if he wore a school uniform or not. Besides, they were to receive a new one today after picking a specialization. Nate was just outside the school gate wearing his usual rags which he had as clothes. Everyone gave him weird stares while some even covered their noses as he passed, but he couldn't care less. Nate walked into the school gate and the inauguration of the sixth-year students into adulthood had begun. Nate quickly found a place to hide quietly and listen to the speech. Yesterday, it is most likely that some of you became unstoppable forces of power among your peers, while the others realized a devastating truth. However, I urge you not to be disheartened. Even if you awakened a dog beast, you could still excel in hand-to-hand combat. It might not be what you hoped for, but you would be surprised to discover that the Divine Ones gave you that beast for a reason. Today you would make an irreversible decision. Today you would pick one or more specializations and it would stick with you for life. Please, I urge you not to be fools and go pick something that does not suit you. Please pick with wisdom. The headmaster, who was an old fat man, said. Soon 8 masters climbed atop the podium. There was a sound-amplifying crystal that acted as a speaker and microphone levitating a few inches beneath their mouths. These are your teachers for each specialization. These would be the men and women who would brutally train you until you are deemed ready. I hereby present the 9 masters of Zerbless, Lady Genevieve Lockie of the Mage Department, Sir Theodore Stone of the Knight Department, Sir Aluel Daniel of the Battle Mage Department, Sir Yukiel Hat of the Formation Master Department, Lady Priyanka Courage of the Forge Master Department, Sir Dexter Williams of the Hand-to-Hand Combat Department, Sir Jake Gray of the Keepers of Knowledge, Miss Aaliyah of the Healers and Support Department. The headmaster finished his introductions. Each of the masters stood proud and tall. They were the best Zerbless had to offer. Not all were natives of Zerbless, and some had traveled here from other continents. Everyone stared at the 8 masters in admiration, each wishing to be like them, all except Nate, who just stared at them blankly. I am sure that by now all of you are familiar with the various departments and their buildings, so please, whatever department you feel suits you, kindly head there. The headmaster said. After a person unlocked their beasts, they would pick a specialization and begin training in that specialization until it was time for grand selection. A person could pick a maximum of 3 specializations if they felt they could handle it. They would discuss it over with their masters and a schedule would be drafted for them. The departments were separated into various buildings which were a reasonable distance apart from each other. Nate was already on his way headed to the Battle Mage Department. He knew he could not use any magical attacks yet, but according to the system, if he did well, then he would receive one soon. Hey Trash, what are you doing here? Nate heard a hoarse voice from his left, and he could feel someone touching his shoulder. Nate looked around only to see a boy with green hair and eyes. He was a bit short, around the same height as Nate. He had an overconfident smile on his face and a scar ran across his left eye. On his right arm, the marking of a gecko could be seen. Quest: defeat the idiot. Info: an idiot has disrespected you. He has disrespected the Dragon Lord. Show him who is the boss. Reward: plus 50 EXP. Nate could not let such a beautiful offer go. The more EXP he gained, the stronger he would ultimately become. Why are you calling me Trash? Do I look like your father? Nate asked with a mocking smile on his face, leading to a gasp. Everyone was surprised and waited in anticipation for what Gecko planned to do against Nate. Gecko was a well-known small-time bully. He was not powerful, but he was skillful. He loved bullying all those he perceived as weaker than him. He was only feared among the weak ones, and he was not even worth mentioning among the strong. Do you want to die, rag boy? Gecko asked with fury written all over his eyes. His claws began to extend, and it was clear he meant business. Your stupidity itself could kill me, so I won't underestimate you. Quickly go read a book at the library before you begin spreading your plague of stupidity, Nate said, his voice laced with mockery. It was the same cock attitude that led to his current situation with Mark. How dare you all even think of starting a fight? A deep and loud voice thundered across the skies. Sir Aluel Daniel's voice could be heard. Nate looked to the skies only to see Sir Aluel without a smile on his face. A black cane used to support his weight was held in his hands, and he stood proudly in the skies. Sir Aluel was a black man of age 70. He was a bit short with a height of 5 feet 2 inches. He had gray hair and black eyes, and he carried a majestic air of nobility all around him. Merely looking at him, one could tell he was a powerful force. He descended from the skies right in between Nate and Gecko, who were about to battle. "How dare you even think of fighting, without informing me? I love watching fights," Sir Aluwale said with a smile on his face. "I am going to beat the crap out of this bastard." Nate thought, and a grin appeared on his face. Chapter name: Fight with Gecko. The crowd had cleared a space for Nate and Gecko to battle it out. They arranged themselves in a wide and round format, giving ample space for the two students to battle. On one end was Gecko, claws extending from his arms and green scales appearing all over his body. He had no weapon on him, and it was clear he was ready to duel. On the other was Nate, with no special transformation, no weapon, and a cocky smile on his face. He had assumed a battle stance, and it was becoming apparent that he knew a martial arts fighting technique. Nate had studied a little bit of martial arts back when he was younger. He knew he was weak and did that to try and make up for his weakness, but he had long since stopped training after finding out that he could unlock a beast. He had hopes of unlocking a powerful beast, so he saw no point in training. Just before the match started, Nate made sure to check his system stats so he could get a rough idea of the skills he was going to use and how to use them to win. System level: 1 power level. 1 name: Nate Bliss. Age: 17. Race: human. Class: Draconic being in transition. Beast: Dragon King. Beast type: Dragon Beast. Class: XX plus HP: 100 EP, 50 mana, 10 Dragon Energy, 50 skills, 2 Speed, 10 Strength, 7 Endurance, 15 EXP, 0 Stat Points, 0. Let us establish some ground rules here. No intentional killing. Do not attack after your opponent has surrendered. If the match is interrupted, the person who interrupts would be expelled from Zerbliss. No use of weapons, only magic and your physical abilities. Gecko leaped towards Nate, with his claws extended, ready to slash Nate into two. Green energy surrounded his claws. Merely looking at it, Nate's instincts had told him that the claws were very dangerous. Nate swerved to the side and Gecko slashed nothing but the air. Nate punched Gecko straight in the face, making him fly a few meters back. "What the fuck? How is that trash so fast?" A student said. Last he had checked, a gecko was considered a relatively fast land creature, and a tick was nothing more than a mere parasite, so everyone wondered how Nate had performed such a feat. Gecko got back up to his feet immediately. He was surprised that Nate had managed to land a hit on him, but he considered it dumb luck. "Looks like I can only use my skills 4 more times till I run out of energy. I should use this wisely," Nate thought. Unknowingly, Nate had been so focused on the system screen obstructing his peripheral vision that he had forgotten about Gecko. All the hairs on Nate's body stood erect and goosebumps appeared on his body. It was obvious that something was wrong. He quickly looked above him, only to see Gecko with a crazy smile on his face and his claws just inches away from his face. Nate's body blurred and a little explosion occurred at his feet. In a split second, he had covered a distance of 5 meters, leaving the crowd shocked. Not only is he surprisingly strong, but now he is fast too? Another onlooker from the crowd said. They all expected this fight to be over by now, but surprisingly the two opponents were still kicking, and the apparent trash was faring way better than Gecko. Gecko this time did not give Nate any chance to breathe. Using his speed, he dashed straight toward Nate. Nate knew he only had enough dragon energy for 3 skills left, and at the speed Gecko was rushing towards him, he would ultimately be forced to waste his dragon energy and fail his first quest. Nate tried to dodge Gecko's slash, which was already approaching his face, but he was way too slow. Gecko slashed his right arm, leading to 5 claw marks appearing on them and blood dropping from it like a faucet. Nate groaned in pain. No wonder he was getting a strange feeling from Gecko's claws. They were poisoned, and he had stupidly let that poison touch him. But what could he do? It was either that or fail the quest. Nate tried to dodge but was too slow. Gecko did not let up and continued his onslaught on Nate. Nate tried his best to dodge the claws, but he was way too slow to match someone like Gecko, whose reflexes were crazy fast. Nate laid on the floor, all bruised and battered. Gecko had cut him severely, and now all he could do was stare at the sky in pain. "Sir Aluwale, are you not going to end their fight? That trash could die." A student said. He honestly did not care about Nate's well-being and only said that to test how far the professor would let this fight go. so in case of a duel he would know who to challenge. Shut up your mouth and watch, child. You might just gain a bit of wisdom if you focus closely, Sir Aluwale said with a smile on his face. He knew what Nate was doing, and he loved it. The student was infuriated by Sir Aluwale's response, but what could he do? Sir Aluwale could wipe him out with a mere thought if he pleased. The student knew this and just shut up. He began to think about his life while watching the fight. Gecko ultimately grew tired and his claws began reverting back into his body. The scales on his skin disappeared and his previously horizontal pupils, which were like that of a lizard, returned to normal. Gecko had used up his energy to transform into his beast state. It was quite an impressive feat for someone his age. The beast state was a unique state when a host and their beast fuse bodies, ultimately causing the human to develop certain beast-like features. A simple beast like a gecko granted its user speed enhancement, claws, increased reflexes, and a minimal increase in strength. Usually it took people about a month to master the beast state, and Gecko seemed to have mastered it in a day. But his beast state was clearly incomplete, premature, and impractical. It could not last long and did not give much of a boost. It was clear Gecko was talented, but he still needed practice. Gecko turned his back to walk away from the fight. In his mind he had taught Nate a lesson to never disrespect him again, but little did he know he was nothing but a fool. Gecko could hear the sound of something zooming behind him, and before he could turn around, he felt a stinging pain coming from the back of his head, which was quickly followed another in his nether regions. The pain had quickly caused him to pass out. Nate was not a fool. He naturally wanted to wear Gecko out while pretending to be helpless, and when the time was right he dragon flashed to Gecko's back, then delivered 2 punches to critical areas of his body, aiming to take him out instantly, and accomplished his mission. Did I not tell you that you might gain wisdom? Sir Aluwake asked a rhetorical question to the student who had spoken to him before. The student was shocked and kept his mouth closed. The winner, as we can all see, is Nate, Sir Aluwale announced, and everyone were as silent as they were surprised. Congratulations, you have completed your first quest. Rewards: +5 strength, +5 speed, +10 EXP. Nate could feel a surge of power invading his being. He quickly checked his system tab. System level: 1 power level. 1 name: Nate Bliss. Age: 17. Race: Human. Class: Draconic being in transition. Beast: Dragon King. Beast. Beast type: Dragon. Beast class: XX plus HP: 2100 EP, 0 50 mana, 10 dragon energy, 0 50 skills, 2 speed, 15 strength, 12 endurance, 15 EXP, 5100 stat points, 0. Chapter name: Battle Mage. Class: UC. Students: there is more to some things than it meets the eye, Sir Aluwale declared. From the onset, that he knew that Nate would win the match and that Gecko would fail due to overconfidence. This young lad, there is something strange about him. A tick beast, but yet he moves with unparalleled speed and strikes with unimaginable strength. He thinks like a battle veteran. This boy has potential, Sir Aluwale said. He had been observing Nate ever since he started fighting. In his mind, it was clear Nate knew a little bit of martial arts, but his technique was sloppy. He did have good instincts and was an excellent tactician, but he could also notice a strange energy surrounding him, one that wasn't domineering and a bit premature. This boy, I do not believe that is his beast. He is hiding something, Sir Aluwale thought. Sir Aluwale was a smart man, and he knew Nate was hiding something. Now, everyone please take this as a lesson, Sir Aluwale said. He walked right up to Gecko, who was just barely regaining consciousness. With a swift swipe, he crushed Gecko's jaw with his cane, making Gecko wince in pain. The next time you call someone stronger than you, trash, I will give you hell. Do you understand me? Sir Aluwale said while looking straight into Gecko's eyes. Gecko was too weak to reply, so he just nodded his head with tears in his eyes. Good. Now scream to the healing department. They will take care of your wounds, and do not be late, Sir Aluwale said, and then he turned to face Nate. He looked at Nate's body but was surprised to find out that his bleeding had stopped and his cut marks were slowly healing back up. With a mere swipe of his hands, blue energy left his arms and was headed towards Nate at an incredible pace. Nate wanted to dodge at first, but he could feel that the energy was not meant to harm him. The ball of blue energy landed straight on his chest, and Nate could feel a rejuvenating feeling in his system. He could feel his energy replenishing and his wounds disappearing completely. Foreign energy has invaded your system. System level, 1 power level, 1 name, Nate Bliss age, 17 race. Human class, Draconic being in transition beast, Dragon King beast type, Dragon beast class. XX plus HP, 2100 EP, 0 50 mana, 10 dragon energy, 0 50 skills, 2 speed, 15 strength, 12 endurance, 15 EXP, 5100 stat points, 0. Nate smiled on seeing his system tab. He had gotten stronger and he could feel it. He was sure he could match up to more people now. Now, I believe we have wasted enough time. Let us head to the battle mage block, Sir Aluel said, and the students began following him. After selecting a specialization, students were to be trained for 6 months before heading to their continent's academy, where they would receive extensive veteran training before becoming fully fledged warriors and handling the cases of wild beasts. We are here, Sir Aluel said as soon as they arrived at the battle mage building. At the entrance was a statue of Sir Aluel himself with a sword held in one hand and a ball of energy held in the other. Past that were several small buildings that seemed to be residential areas for servants and Sir Aluel himself. There was also a huge and empty field of grass with weapons surrounding them and several wooden dolls which had human shapes in place. The whole place was a bit quiet and the smell of freshly cut grass was the most potent smell there. Besides that, nothing else could be seen. Sir Aluel made his way to the field of grass, which also had a little stream running by, and the students followed. Some had already theorized what would be going on. There were huge trees surrounding the field of grass which provided shelter for the students and Sir Aluel to train in peace. Sir Aluel sat at the foot of a huge tree and instructed the students to sit on the other side of the lake under another set of trees. The number of students in the battle mage specialization was around 20 including Gecko, and they were all seated comfortably. A battle mage is a unique specialization. It consists of the training of a knight, that of a mage, and that of a martial artist. It is a perfect and harmonious balance of both sides, and it excelled so well when it was first tried that it became a specialization of its own. However, a battle mage cannot be called a full knight or a full mage, nor can they be called a full martial artist. As we all know, a jack of all trades is a master of none. By the end of these 6 months of training, only 10 of you will be selected as ready to go to the academy, while the rest of you will be trained further. Every day, every one of you would receive theoretical knowledge on how to cast spells, fight, and use weapons, and then you would put into practice what you have learned against those wooden dolls over there. Your fighting skills would determine your rank in class, and only the top 10 would be recommended for the academy. There would be monthly duels to challenge people for their positions, and the whole thing would be selected by me. This is how these classes would be graded until I die. The students who failed last year would also be joining you all to make the place livelier and more competitive. If you fail next year, the same will be repeated in your case. If you fail this class twice, however, you will either choose a new specialization or you will kindly exit this school. There are also weekly duels among each specialization to determine the best. Fail this and I will fail you. Now, enough talk, show me what you have got against those dolls. Sir Aluel finished. His explanation and speech were so perfect that no one would get confused and everyone understood perfectly. Quest: impress your teacher. Info: your teacher has given you a task. Defeat the dolls and impress him. Reward: plus 50 EXP. The system gave Nate more motivation to do his best and impress his teacher, who would not want more power. I love this system, Nate said to himself. Ever since he had gotten the system, things were looking up for him. I am watching you, Nate. Show me what you have got, Sir Aluel said internally. Chapter name: Battling a magic doll. Nate stood before his magical doll. There was enough for everyone in the class and they were all staring at them. The dolls were all made of wood and were designed like Japanese samurai wearing masks. They had a katana which was held by both their arms. They held one leg before the other, and their eyes were dead and focused. Although the dolls were made of wood, they were still human-looking and looked extremely durable. The amount of craftsmanship that had been put into every single one of these dolls was simply outstanding, and their functionality was mind-blowing. These are magical dolls created by the Forge Mastering Department. Each of these dolls is designed with the intent to train students on their battle techniques. These dolls are all capable of 5 different levels. Level 1 is a basic sword and magical attacks. At level 2, these dolls increase in speed, strength, and sensibility. At level 3 they possess amateur magic and sword attacks. Level 4 is for experts of magic and swordsmanship. These dolls become fast enough to evade lightning attacks and strong enough to cut through steel like it is paper. At level 5, this is the veteran swordsmanship and magic. No student who has studied for less than 4 years can take it on. Its strength and speed become unimaginable, and it uses the six-sword technique. Master Audiobook took a dramatic pause from his speech to analyze the face of each student. I would be setting these dolls at level 1. Only people who can beat level 2 would be eligible to proceed to the academy. Sir Audiobook finished. With a simple bang of his cane on the ground, a magical aura spread forth, awakening the dolls. They began to move and assumed a perfect sword stance, to show that they were ready for battle. Nate's doll thrust his sword at him. Nate was fast enough to dodge and quickly swerve to the side. He planned to respond with an attack of his own, but the doll was way too powerful. The doll had anticipated Nate's moves and even drew him in to attack so it could counter. Nate could sense something heading towards his side at a fast pace and was too slow to dodge. Bam! The wooden sword had hit Nate right in his ribs, sending him flying back. The doll had made a maid of Nate in under 10 seconds. Nate, you are too reckless. Do not rely completely on your instincts. You take too much pride in your strength and you overestimate it, Sir Audiobook said, correcting all Nate's mistakes. Okay. Sir Nate shouted and rushed towards his doll once more. He was prepared to beat the shit out of it. The doll was in a semi-fixed position and could not move more than 2 meters from its starting point. Nate this time analyzed the doll more. It was clear it was capable of intelligence and sensibility, so he made sure to carefully analyze every moment. Nate jumped right at his doll. He was not a fool and only did so to see its reaction. The doll stabbed its sword toward Nate, stopping him right in the air. It was so quick to act that it had failed to notice that Nate had purposely. Nate hit the doll square in the face, or so he thought. The sword of the doll was instantly laced with fire and Nate screamed in pain. His attack had missed its trajectory and flew off course. The doll brought its sword down on Nate, expecting to end his life there instantly. Nate had good instincts and quickly swerved to the side. I pushed it to use magic, which means I should be getting better. Nate thought, and immediately he got up from his feet. Nate's body blurred, causing another sword strike to miss him. Nate appeared beside the doll at its stomach, just where it was unguarded. Nate struck the doll at point-blank range, right in the gut, but at the same time, the sword hit his back with burning intensity, causing Nate to scream in pain and jump away. 8100 HP. Other students had long since lost to their dolls and had given up, while some were still fighting, but all couldn't doubt the unshakable prowess of Nate. Nate was like a man possessed. No matter how much beating he received from the doll, he gladly jumped back at it with full force, not letting up. Anyone could see the fire and determination radiating off of him. This boy is truly something else. His hot-headedness. His father might have slept with the fire god without knowing. Sir Audiobook joked in his mind. Nate didn't even notice others were looking at him, and his entire being was focused on killing the doll that stood before him. This time Nate began circling the beast. He knew that fighting it head-on was impossible, and if he was to jump, he wouldn't be able to dodge and would just be a sitting duck in the air, which was a bit stupid and what Sir Audiobook had warned him about. With undying determination, Nate slowly moved towards the doll, which had already raised its sword ready to strike him. Nate's speed exploded and he was headed straight for the doll. The doll pretended to be too slow to slash him and tried to speed up at the last second. Nate's speed exploded once more, and he quickly ducked under the blade and maneuvered past it, ready to hit the doll. Nate's explosive punch hit the doll right in the stomach, causing a loud ringing sound to be heard. Parts of the doll's gut had broken off, but it was too small to be a threat. Nate was panting tiredly. He was completely and totally exhausted. He had used up all his dragon energy and was now feeling extremely weak. The doll stabbed Nate on his shoulder with its sword laced in flames, making Nate scream in pain and fall to the floor, squirming for his life. The doll raised its sword once more, ready to take Nate's life. Nate laid on the floor as he watched the flaming sword descend upon his neck, threatening to unalive him at any second. That is enough from you, Sir Audiobook said. He banged his cane on the floor once more, causing a pulse of magical energy to be spread forth from it. The doll stopped in its tracks, inches away from Nate's face. Nate laid there on the floor, praying to the divine god. He was barely conscious and his body was littered with burn marks and bruises. Quest: Impress your teacher has been failed. Reason: you could not defeat the doll while it was active. Punishment: None. Nate smiled on receiving the new quest. He was glad to see that he didn't risk his body for nothing and that he still had a chance to gain the EXP. You have the heart and the instincts of a great warrior, Nate. However, your eyes are blinded by greed. Take your eyes off the reward to get the reward. Sir. Aluel said wisely. He could tell with the way Nate was fighting that there was something he was fighting for and he wasn't just fighting ordinarily. Sir Aluel placed his hand on Nate's head and Nate could feel a weird energy invading his system. However, it wasn't the first time he had experienced such today. Nate could see the system message and was proud of himself. He had managed to do something useful today, which was gaining a new quest. Nate here is the top of this class. Treat him with respect or you won't be treated when I'm done with you. Sir Aluel said politely with a smile on his face. Those words held great significance to the students and they knew Sir Aluel wasn't playing at all. Sir Aluel waved his arms towards Nate and a new set of clothes had appeared on his body, and that was how the first day of class ended. The moon shot its silver rays on the land of Zerblis. A hooded figure was quickly zipping around the place in search of something. He scaled the defenses of Zerblis high with meticulous mastery, and soon enough he had arrived at his destination. Who said I am done with you? Nate said, looking at the doll which had embarrassed him earlier. Chapter name. Battling a magical doll. Nate got to work. He knew he had only a week to beat this doll if he wanted his EXP and he could not afford to let up, give up, or get tired. His mind was inhumanely focused and he had gone into a state of such focus that made men gods. Nate searched the body of the doll and was able to see a switch that went all the way from level 1 to level 10. Nate turned the doll on and soon it had assumed the battle stance he was familiar with. The doll unsheathed its blade, coating it with pure orange flames that burned with low intensity but were hotter than regular flames. Nate stared at the dancing flames of the sword. He knew he had to be careful. There was no Sir Aluel to heal him, and if he made a silly mistake that would be the end of his life. Let's do this. Nate shouted and immediately assumed a battle stance. He was more than ready to take this beast on, and his undying determination was burning like flames in his heart. Whatever Nate set his mind to, he would achieve it. Sir, shall we stop him? A burly man dressed in black said. Beside him was another man and a woman all dressed in similar clothing. No, let the boy train. His determination is something I have never seen. His will is undying, and he cares not about his physical body. His instincts are sharper than a blade. That boy is on his way to becoming the greatest warrior Zerblis has ever birthed. Sir Aluel said with admiration. He had a soft smile on his face as he looked at Nate, who was lodged in a fierce battle with the doll. Sir, isn't that stupidity? His determination and resilience might end up causing his death one day. The burly man said once more. In his eyes, Nate was nothing more than a powerless fool who was working so hard to do something that wasn't working. Stupidity, you say? That young boy landed 2 hits on that doll earlier today. He nearly died, but he did it. He has a powerful mind and spirit. I just hope he becomes dedicated to saving people, or else this entire town would be burned down by his wrath. Sir Aluel said with a bitter smile on his face. What do you mean, sir? The burly man asked once again. It was clear he was confused. Sir Aluel always spoke in proverbs. My people have a saying, the child who is not embraced by the village would burn it down to feel its warmth. Sir Aluel said with a bitter smile on his face. Nate dodged an incoming sword strike. He grabbed the doll's right arm and pulled it as hard as he could, attempting to break it. He didn't want to use his skills so early to avoid getting tired, and he had decided that the sword was what made the doll so dangerous. The doll shook its arm violently, forcing Nate to let go and tumble to the ground. Nate could sense imminent danger as soon as he landed, and he immediately leaped out of the way. There was a burn mark where his head had been previously, and now he was getting more serious. It looked like the doll was out to kill him, and he could feel it was dead serious about accomplishing its goal. Nate calmly walked towards the doll and was interrupted with another slash to the head, which he quickly dodged. Nate's body blurred, and within a microsecond, he had closed the distance between him and the doll. Nate's first exploded forward, propelled by immense draconic power and sheer will. His fist landed straight to the chest of the doll, causing small parts of it to break off. Nate's speed exploded once more and he returned to his starting position. He was not a fool, and he knew exactly what would happen if he had stayed put. The last time he did, his back was scorched by flames and littered with bruises and burn marks. He was careful not to repeat that mistake anymore. You see, you call him a fool, but he has learned the attacking pattern of his enemy. Not by strategy but by instinct. He has walked through fire, but instead of letting the fire burn him, he mastered it and was forged by it. Once bitten, twice shy, he day hear word. Sir Aluwale rambled once more. The men and the woman did not speak and calmly let Sir Aluwale continues his ramblings while watching Nate battle it out with the doll. Nate tried to dodge another incoming attack but was too slow. The sword hit his back, burning a part of his clothes and sending him tumbling. Nate groaned in pain. The doll had been whacking him relentlessly ever since he had managed to get his first hit. He felt like he had angered the doll, and the doll decided to get more serious with dealing with him. Nate's body was now littered with bruises and cut marks. I wonder what happens if I reach 0 HP? Do I pass out? Can I die? Nate asked himself strange questions. Nate charged in towards the doll again. Nate's speed exploded midway, barely avoiding the flaming sword that was descending upon his head. Nate struck once more at the doll, but this time it turned at the last second, making Nate hit nothing but air. Nate's speed exploded once more, and he had managed to evade the flaming sword that was about to hit him. Nate did not understand how he had managed to gain stat points but decided not to bother about it. His dragon energy had been depleted for today, and frankly, he was tired, so he decided to play it safe for today. There was no Sir Aluwale to save him. Nate was currently staring at the doll. It was still active, but he was just outside its range and was currently wondering how to deactivate it. Air. Turn off. Nate said. His instincts were telling him to just do things the easy way, and surprisingly it had worked. The doll suddenly lost power and went to sleep just like magic. That was because it was magic. Nate had failed to notice the small pulse of energy Sir Aluwale had used to turn off the doll. Nate checked his stats and left the training grounds the same way he came, heading back to his home. System level, 1 power level, 1 name, Nate Bliss, age, 17, race, human class, draconic being in transition, beast, dragon king, beast type, dragon beast class, XX plus HP, 2100 EP, 0 50 mana, 10 dragon energy, 0 50 skills, 2 speed, 16 strength, 13 endurance, 16 EXP, 5100 stat points, 0. Somewhere within a dimly lit room, 6 beasts sat on their throne, all staring at one throne, an empty one. They had horrified looks on their faces as they stared at it. Above the throne, a dim blue flame danced around. The flame looked so weak that it could barely illuminate the room, but it was burning. What is the meaning of this cannon? You promised me you finished off Marv. How is his flame still burning? A beast questioned, and by the tone of his voice one could tell he was scared. Relax. I have sent my finest knight to the human world. The old Dragon King must die. Look at how weakly his flame is burning. He must be very weak. Have you gone senile, Cannon? We all know what Marv is capable of. The concept of time does not exist to him. He would do whatever it takes to rise to power as soon as possible, and he would come for our heads. Another beast king said in fear. They were all aware of who Marv was and what he could do. Relax. I would never give Marv the chance to rise again. Marv must die. This I promise you all. Brad said once more, trying to reassure the council. Kill him soon, Crad, or I would go to the human world myself and tear it apart. West Continent, West Beast Academy. I am finally here. I am free. Now it's time to please master and kill whatever is left of Marv. Chapter name. Magic? The next day Nate woke up to the chirping of birds above his house. Zerbliss was a really beautiful and peaceful land filled with naturally beautiful sights. Nate quickly freshened up and got ready for school. He put on the clothes which were gifted to him by Sir Aluwale the other day and swiftly made his way to school. Nate was peacefully walking when suddenly mud splashed on his face. Nate groaned in anger. He knew there was only one family in Zerbliss that could be such dick bags. Hey loser, just wanted to remind you that you would never be greater than me. Nate heard the same voice he loathed with every cell in his body. That is what your father was told as a kid. Nate snorted. He knew what he just did was punishable by death, but why would he care? Mark's face turned red with fury and could be seen through the carriage glass. You are lucky I do not have time for incessant fools like you, Mark said angrily and ordered the chariot driver to keep moving. Nate was lucky Ivan Grey Whip. The Lord of Zerblus was an extremely kind man and rarely supported his children's evil doings, or else he would have been hung many years ago. Nate managed to wash off the mud from his face and continued his journey undisturbed throughout. He made his way into the academy and navigated his way to his class. The same thing repeated itself. There was a small stream separating the students and Sir Aluwale. Sir Aluwale sat opposite the students at the root of a tree, and the students sat under a stage. Yesterday we focused on battle and martial arts. I tested you all by seeing what you could do fighting against those magical dolls. Some of you did poorly, some exceptionally well, while some were outright crazy geniuses. I was able to get a rough scope of your talents, abilities, and determination when it comes to battle yesterday, which was the purpose of the class, but today I want us to do something a bit similar. Sir Aluwale said, making sure to take a dramatic pause and observe the face of everyone. I want to see what you can do with magic. As you may all know, this is the Battle Mage class, and it deals with training in magic and battle. Yesterday I trained you in battle, today we shall see what you can do with magic. Sir Aluwale said with a little smile on his face. Sir, please, what is magic? A short black-haired boy asked curiously. Magic was not something well taught or well understood by everyone. Wise question. Magic can be defined as the manipulation of reality using mana as an energy source. Magic is a talent, a principle, and a gift not given to all. Magic requires serious training and discipline before it can be properly mastered. Magic could be used for anything like daily activities of lighting a candle to rewriting history, or if the gods will it, time travel. Magic is something that has existed since creation itself. Humans could use it before the introduction of beasts, and having beasts makes magic more powerful. However, there are different gifts from magic. Some are blessed with the ability to control the elements, others can mimic the appearance of any object or living thing, and some are outright capable of splitting mountains with their breaths. A magical individual can at least possess one of these gifts, and at most so far, we have only witnessed a single individual who possesses 3 gifts of magic. Magic can also be incorporated into physical objects like potions, flying chariots, magic weapons, healing pills, performance enhancement pills, etc. But that is what the forge masters, alchemists, and healers are for. We, along with the mages and wardens, use magic for frontline battle. We do not need to spend our time in some lab researching magical formulas. We use their products to fight. As a battle mage, you should be incorporated with at least one skill. If you fail to gain a magical skill by the end of this month, I am sorry, but I will ultimately have to recommend you change your field of study to the night department. Sir Aluwale finished his speech with a heavy voice at the end. He had seen so many who thought they were special but at the end of the day lacked mana. Sir, is it possible for a non-magical human to use mana? The same short kid with black curly hair said. It seemed he was the most curious in the class. Yes, the first and most possible way would be for you to use magic skills for magical armor. The second is to engage in a forbidden ritual performed by witches which creates a dark mana core and grants you a temporary mana core in exchange for your life. Sir Aluwale said with bitter eyes at the end. It seemed he had once been personally affected by this matter. Always remember one thing, no matter how pleasant it seems, which magic is never the option, and it would always, and I repeat, always take more than it gives. You could be able to use mana for 10 minutes and then it would consume half of your lifespan, which magic is poison and it would always destroy, it can never create, and you will ultimately regret. Sir Aluwale said with more sadness in his eyes. So sir, what then is a mage? The same kid asked again. He seemed to always be curious or thinking of something mischievous. A mage is simply one who can use mana. There are several rankings to a mage depending on their magical ability and talent. Magi, mage, mage noble, mage lord, mage baron, archmage, transcendent mage, god mage. The magi are the weakest and most basic rank, while the god mage is the most powerful magic user. Only a few of them exist. Okay, now enough of magic talk. Let me see what y'all can do with magic. Sir Aluwale said, making Nate gulp.